But there was something about that, like if you knew Mark, the fact that he's from West Virginia and the kind of guy he is, it really did make that character work. That's like far less on that scale of corniness to me, because it was fun to watch, and he made the matches fun to watch.
Next match is Sid with Ted DiBiase versus Henry O. Godwinn. Now, previously it shows on Superstars that Godwinn has slopped Sid with a bucket full of porridge, it looks like. He slops Ted DiBiase twice, and then Sid powerbombs Godwinn. And then the story of the match is that Henry O. Godwinn has a bad back from the powerbomb, and that leads to the finish, essentially. Just before you comment on the match, I don't know if anyone can confirm at home, but Henry Godwinn's theme song, which is atrocious at this point, is just ding, 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 and then someone's going, hoo-wee, doot, doot, doot. And I'm sure that's Todd Pettingill doing all the noises over it.
Is that right?
It sounds like his voice, so I think it was Todd who ended up contributing vocals, as it were.
Yeah, because that'd be free. You're in the office, go down there and record something.
He was not free. Apparently he was making $250,000 a year, Todd.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Unbelievable.
Good for him. Yeah, it's
and that was his part-time gig. He was doing the radio show every morning as well. He was coining it in, that guy.
Good for him. The thing that struck me out in this match is, we all know how big Sid is, right? I mean, it just takes one to look at him. But even more impressive is Mark Godwinn. Henry Godwinn. Mark's a big boy, right? I mean, he's no small fry himself, and yet next to Sid, he looks like average sized. It's a real testament to how big. Like, it's sometimes difficult to try put into words. Like if you try to describe to somebody standing next to Andre the Giant, words don't do it justice. You had to see him. It was breath. It literally took your breath away. And Sid had that kind of like, oh shit, damn, he's a big boy. Like Taker, same thing. Kevin Nash. I mean, a lot of guys in the business. But watching Mark look not small, but fairly average next to Sid really put it in perspective. By the way, Henry Godwinn, Mark, he's a great guy. When you see him now, always got a big old smile on his face, just happy to be around the boys and see him. And he was always one of those guys, like when Steamboat and I were together, we got to work, he and his partner, quite often. And Steamer loved working with him because they were big guys, could really get the heat, but they also were big guys that could bounce and move and get us over. I always thought, like, anytime I saw my name on a list next to Mark, I had Henry Godwinn. I was like, night off, easy night. You're going to go out there and have a great match and not have to work too hard for it, because he was just, so impressive of a guy. But in this match with Sid, like, what impressed me even more about him was, if you watch him bouncing around and selling, like when you talk to people like, hey, who are the best sellers in the business? Hey, Ricky Morton, Ricky Steamboat, this person, that person. Rarely would you ever hear a guy like Henry Godwinn, right? But man, he's doing a great job getting Sid Vicious over. He really is. And when it gets to the point of the end and he starts making the comeback on it, to me, all of it was incredibly well done. We'll go on, because that was my takeaway in the whole thing. And watching that show from start to finish wasn't even like some of the matches that would be considered lackluster, say, to the other matches that were on the card. I didn't see anything on the show last night that was like egregiously bad or out of place. I think it speaks more, pretty much of the era that, like, everybody was, working hard at their craft and trying to give good performances out there for the audience.
I think with Mark Canterbury is his real name, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Mark Canterbury, yeah.
There were two things that I want to add. Is one, I love the reverse DDT as a finisher. I just think it's a great finisher that just, apart from Sting as well,
yes,
just no one ever seems to use, and I just think it's a great finisher. And I think, and I'll sort of just like piggyback on what you said, is that if you know what you're looking for, Mark Canterbury, Henry Godwinn was very, very, very good. And I think maybe the character sort of masks that a bit, really.
Yeah. Definitely did. I remember when I first saw the character, because I had worked with Mark extensively before that. And again, with the corny characters like I was talking about before. But there was something about that, like if you knew Mark, the fact that he's from West Virginia and the kind of guy he is, it really did make that character work. That's like far less on that scale of corniness to me, because it was fun to watch, and he made the matches fun to watch. And like at that time, in that moment, I was just like, oh God, but he's so much more than that, But like if you talk to him, he said, hey, I had to take a bucket of slop out and throw it on somebody and do 1 or 2 moves and done, right? It was easy. But he is, I think if you go back, like I told Moose last night, you get these questions like, who's on your Mount Rushmore? You're a legend or you're an icon or whatever. Rarely would a name like Mark Canterbury, Henry O. Godwinn get thrown in there as like one of those workers. But I think if you go back and look at his body of work, like you'll see more good matches than you'll see crapperoos or gimmicky matches. I asked Moose last night. I'd be curious to find out. Next time I see him, I'll ask him who trained him, because he clearly knew, like what was up and down in the ring. Well trained.
Let me just see if I can find that out for you at Wikipedia. George South and the Italian Stallion.
There you go. And the Italian Stallion too. Yeah. So you had 2 guys that really knew their craft. Stallion died though, right?
Oh, gold. Now you're asking. I've no idea. 1 second. Sorry, scintillating podcast material, me looking on Wikipedia. Gary, I can't even pronounce his surname, says he's still alive. 1957 born. Okay,
good. For some reason I had it in my head. I haven't seen him since then. But just another guy, we always call him Stallion. Hey Stallion, Italian Stallion, good guy. Back then, that was even though it was not nationwide, like the NWA running like the Carolinas and Georgia, and that there was a lot of long drives in those. North Carolina is a very wide state, like Pennsylvania, so you could be in Charlotte and have an 8-hour drive to get out, especially back then. If they were heading out to the coast, like say Cherry Hill or Cherry Point, because there was no real big highway system to get you over there. So a whole bunch of back roads and stuff, which is why Ronnie Garvin would typically fly those distance shots. But yeah, Stallion was always on those trips. But like George South, by the way, this weekend was up at Altoona, PA, giving a seminar, and the guy that runs the show is a good friend of mine. And I told him, I said, "Oh, George is going to give a great seminar. He's one of those guys, coming up in the business. Like it always seemed there were 2 types of people. Somebody that wanted to be like secretly, everybody that gets into wrestling wants to be world champion. Nobody goes, hey, I'm going to be world champion. At least back in my day, where nobody was that brash. But secretly, everybody in the business, nobody wants to be just the guy on the card. Everybody wants to be a star on the card. And George, though, had figured out, far smarter than most of us, just it's sort of, again, the tortoise and the hare thing. If I just stay over here and just do my job, and I can be at home every night and make good money, and he'll tell people, I bought and sold 3 homes with this, losing all those matches. Because he clearly was and is talented enough to have been a major star in the business. He found a smarter way to do it.